Hello, guys. How are you? Welcome once again to this class. Um, yes, today is Tuesday, so we almost there. People, just stay with me for a little bit more. Let's just continue with yesterday's class. We are going to finish today talking about mortgage and lending laws. So we're gonna go straight to our share screen with today's subject. I was a little bit complicated today, I will say. Therefore, I wasn't able to send what I told you I was going to send, and I wasn't able to record, not record, but to post yesterday class. So I will try my best to work on that tomorrow. All right, guys. Okay, let's just jump right in it. So, we have been talking about mortgages. We have been talking about financing from a big perspective, and then we brought it down to the one-to-one situation. How does a person, how you as an agent can pre-qualify. Okay, pre-qualify. That's all you can do. You cannot pre-approve. Remember, there is a difference between pre-qualifying a person and pre-approving a person. You can do the pre-qualification based on those the percentages that we went through uh, 2 days ago. 2 days ago, yeah, Monday and last week, Thursday. 28% for the income, 36% for the amount of debt. So you as an agent can sit down with someone, can go to the paperwork. I suggest that you not go by what that person tells you verbally, that you actually look at documentation that shows pay stubs, W-2s that shows how much that person actually made gross, and take that under consideration. And then the same thing with debt. They can tell you, oh yeah, I paid $300 in cars. Not, oh, I think I pay around $300, maybe $390, which at the end is $400, right? So try to get solid statements of the reality of the financial situation of that person. Okay, because a single digit can make a difference. So you are only pre-qualifying a person, but at the end, the person is going to have to go to a bank to get a pre-approval. Okay, and that's what actually is going to put their foot in front of the door or inside the door. So we went talking to that kind of mortgage. So you understand that the same way there are laws for real estate, there are laws for lending. Not only to that tell you as a customer, as a consumer, that you have to follow certain rules when you make a promissory note to a bank or to a lender in general, but also to the lenders, so they don't take advantage of you as a consumer. Okay, that's what we're going to be talking about today. First law we're going to see is called Equal Credit Opportunity, or Equal Credit Opportunity Act, or ECOA. ECOA. And I want you to just look at what we are seeing here. You have the the four letters, right? ECOA, that stands for Equal Credit Opportunity Act. And that law, what it says is there's a federal law that requires all lenders to make credit available with fairness and without discrimination. Without, I'm sorry, got something here. With fairness and without discrimination based on race, color, religion, national origin, age, sex, marital status, and I'm sorry, receipt of income from public assistance programs. So what does this mean? This means that uh, you cannot discriminate based on any of these protected classes that you see here. Protected classes are either race, color, religion, national origin, age, sex, marital status, receipt of income from public assistance programs. So a bank cannot go and say, oh no, I'm not gonna lend money to that person because they're Spanish, all right, or because they are African Americans, okay, or because they're French, you know. Uh, that's not That's illegal, and that's a violation of a federal law. It's a violation of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Okay. Then we have the other one, which is the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, or better known as RESPA. Okay, Real Estate Settlement Procedures. So this one is specifically for real estate transactions, and this one says it's a federal law dealing with real estate closings, which sets the which says specific closing procedures and practices designed to allow buyers to compare the cost of services from different lenders or closing agents. So this is RESPA. RESPA is a very interesting one because when we have a customer, the customer is always, concerned. Oh, you already showed the property. Okay, the contracts were already sent out, and everybody's so impatient. The buyer, your client, is so excited. He already told half of the world that he's getting his house or her house. So he's starting to get impatient. He wants to know when he's gonna get, the key. He has everything has been pre-approved. He has his down payment. He has money for the closing costs, everything. He's all set. The only thing he needs is a closing date and the key. So what this law says is that when one of the many things that says is that protects the consumer and allows him to know that there are certain things that the lender need to do before they can actually sit down to close. One of those things is to let them compare the cost of services from different lenders or closing agents. Okay, so if Johnny is a lender, Johnny represents the bank, and Simon wants to buy a house. Johnny has to let Simon know a lot of things before Johnny cannot wait until the last minute when they're sitting down. When she has been waiting for 3 months. She has been dreaming about getting into the house. He has been thinking about, I already know how am I going to paint this wall. I already know the flowers that are going to, she's so excited. When you are about to buy something, you go to, buy, I don't know, pants or shirts or any kind of jewelry or something, then they push you to wait. So you have to wait so much. And then something happens right about the time that you're about to pay for something. And they tell you, oh no, yeah, we figured that the actual price of this is double. But then you realize that you have been waiting for such a long time that you want to pay for it anyway. So you know what, just here it's money. I just want to get it. I spent too much time. So this is exactly one of the things that the government doesn't want the consumers to go through. They want them to know ahead of time what they're going to get into. They don't want the lenders to tell them one thing before they sit down and build up all that expectation of getting a house. And then when they're sitting down at the closing table, then they can find out that they have to pay, this much amount of money in closing costs, this much amount of money in points, all that stuff has to be disclosed before. And this is what RESPA does. One of the other things is that that we need to know is that only applies to sales of 1 to 4 units dwellings, including condos, co-ops, and mobile homes. Okay, this is not for commercial loans. It only applies for residential loans of 1 to 4 units, or once a single family house, 2 family house, 3 families, or 4 units buildings. Okay. It requires the closure. Wait, hold on. We just saw this. Okay, so yeah, so this is exactly what it does. They have to let you know in advance, okay, that that how much money is it that you're gonna be getting, or how much you're actually gonna be using to pay for a house. How much money are they charging you in terms of percentage? How much money are you paying for different expenses? How much money are you do you already pay up front? All the stuff has to be shown on the disclosure. You already, those that had the chance to look at the closing disclosure, closing, how did that, the 9C closing something, I forgot the title of it. But if you guys had a chance to look at it, all the closing statements, okay, all the little things that a buyer will have to pay, the credit that he will have to put out, the buyer, how much, what is he paying, his responsibilities, and all that stuff. Okay, so some of that stuff is going to come from the lender. All right, the lender is going to require the buyer to do an appraisal. The lender is going to pay for it. Okay, not the lender, the buyer is going to pay for the appraisal, because imagine if the appraisal doesn't come back good, the lender is going to have to pay for it, even though he's not giving out the loan. So it doesn't work like that. Okay, so that's one of the things that it shows on the closing disclosure. Okay, now we also have what they call Regulation Z. This is another lending law. Regulation Z is the Federal Reserve Board regulation that was implemented. The Federal Reserve Board regulation that implemented the Truth in Lending Act of 1968, which was part of the Consumer Credit Protection Act that same year. So Regulation Z, as in zebra, okay? It was implemented by the Federal Reserve, okay? And it's part of what they call the Truth in Lending Act. It's very similar to the two ones that we saw before, but this one talks specifically about it gives better information about the true cost of credit and to protect them from certain misleading practices by the lending industry. Okay, so the Regulation C has a it's like the responsibility of making sure that every consumer of a loan, or in this case a mortgage, knows exactly what they're getting into. Okay, so it makes sure that everything is detailed. Every single item of the disclosure page is detailed for the person to know exactly what they're getting into. Okay, at the same time, it works in a major way to make sure that banks don't use misleading practices. For example, like they also um, works with ads, so advertisement. Imagine like a bank that says, "Oh yeah, we have a 7.5% interest rate for 15 years." Okay, or they say, "Okay, you come and we have 15% interest to everyone, 15% interest on your money. So you come, drop your money with us, and we're gonna pay you 15%, for example." So you go there, and then you find out that I only have 15% for the first 6 months. Then it goes down to 4%, for example. So the same thing they can do with advertisement about real estate. They can say we have a special mortgage rate of 1%, 1% mortgage rate for any amount of money up to $1 million. So you get all excited, say, wow, 1%. You go there and you sit down, you start talking to them, and they say, yeah, it's only for the first year. Then it goes up to 5%. So this is a kind of misleading practice, and this is the kind of stuff that this federal regulation does, the Regulation C. They make sure that this kind of ads do not happen, so that people doesn't get fooled and goes into the bank to, not read the small lettering, and then end up in this end up being fooled by the banks. Okay. A few concepts that are very important to remember are what we call the mortgage loan originator. Okay, so the mortgage loan originator is what we usually call the mortgage broker. Okay, so mortgage broker, it's like a real estate broker in terms of lending. He is not as a real estate broker. You will not own the property. Okay, you most of, I mean, maybe you do at some point, but you actually are working for someone else, for your client, who is the actual owner of the property. Okay, and you try to make a transaction happen. You try to find a customer for your client to sell that house. So the mortgage loan originator, or what they call the MLO or the mortgage broker, which is the same thing, he does something similar. He actually, someone comes to him and says, "Oh yeah, I am so and so. I make this much money. I would like to know how much money I can, I'm able to get obtain through a loan." And then he does all his calculation and works. He usually works with different banks or with different bankers, and he knows how they work, what they require, how much they offer, and what are the minimum requirements they will ask for. And then that's how he can provide with a pre-approval letter to your client. Okay, but this person, it's not the person with the money. Usually it's just the person that can make sure that you get the best deal from a bank. Okay, so he's usually talking to the other person who will be a mortgage banker, who is the one that actually lends the money. Okay, so just remember that the MLO, the mortgage loan originator, or the mortgage broker is not the person that lends the money. It's just the person that makes the transaction happen. Okay, if you go to a branch of Chase or Capital One or any of these banks and you sit down, you're gonna see you're probably gonna be talking with a mortgage banker, person that it's a representative of the bank who will obviously only represent the bank, that specific bank. A mortgage broker will look at your situation and see what's with which bank he can work that will actually be better for you. He's usually looking for your interest, or he's supposed to be looking after your interest. And of course, the mortgage brokers, they work on a commission. Usually, it's equivalent of points. And remember, we're talking about points, and we were saying that usually 1 point, it's 1% of the total amount of the loan. Okay. Uh, when I say the total amount of the loan, remember that we're talking about not the total amount of the sale of the house. So if a house sold for 500 and you get 380,000 of a loan, 80%, that means that if you end up making a deal where the mortgage broker gets 1% of the total amount of the loan. So he's getting 1% of the 380,000, not 1% of the 500,000. Okay, because he gets paid based on the amount of money that he gets to you. He's not getting you the 500, he's getting you the 380, even though the bank is going to approve you based on the full amount of the house. Okay, so remember that 1% is 1 point. All right. So jumping to the next one, this is what we were talking just a few minutes ago. Pre-qualification can be done by an agent. Pre-qualification you can do using the loan to income ratio, also using the debt to income ratio, 28%, 36%, depending if someone is using FHA loan, you know that we have different percentages to use and all that stuff. Um, Also, the same thing. We have also mortgage calculators that will allow us to do the pre-qualification. So that makes our job much easier. So you don't have to sit down with a calculator and all this stuff. You just need the numbers. And once again, you're gonna need the right numbers, not a person just telling you, well, one day I make this, 1 week I make something else. You're gonna need, because you don't want to waste your time. Okay, you don't want to be wasting your time with stuff that is not concrete. Then once you get the pre-qualification, then you can suggest, if you know anyone, if you know either a mortgage banker or a mortgage broker, and you can help your customer to get a pre-approval letter. So you call your guy. Hey, Johnny, listen, I have Carol here, and I just did a pre-qualification for her. I can see that she qualified for this much amount of money. I just wanted to know if you can help her to get a pre-approval. I'm gonna send her over to you. Get that done. All right. So usually happens. Carol goes to Johnny. Johnny does the pre-approval letter. Then she sends you back the pre-approval letter, and you guys, you can as an agent take Carol out to look at houses. She chooses a house that she likes. The transaction goes through, and Johnny will call you and say, "Hey, just I sent you a little gift for Christmas. Therefore, for sending me someone my way." So let's see what else we have. Okay, so another concept to remember when we're talking about lending laws is something called subprime loans. And these are loans made to borrowers with questionable credit and who have little chance to pay back. So if you ever, I forgot the name of the movie, but I'm gonna be posting it on the chat too, so you guys can take a look at it. Um, it's a movie about 2008, the housing crash. Uh, I will post it. It's a very good movie. It has very good characters. I think uh, they have a few good characters in it. Even Paris Hilton is there, but it's like a comedy. But it's a really interesting way of finding out what happened in 2008. Okay, and one of the things that happened is that these kind of loans, the subprime loans, were given up and down to everyone. So they were given loans to every single person without, didn't matter the kind of credits they were having, they were just giving them out, giving loans. So people was out there buying houses. The house property houses went up, right? Then these people got these houses, but they didn't have the money to pay these houses. Then the bank started, you know, asking for the money. These people didn't have the money to pay them. They started foreclosure. Prices started going down because there was a lot of people losing houses, and the rest is history. Okay, then we needed all these bailouts, the 800 billions bailouts in 2009, and all that stuff that happened after. Okay, so subprime loans are not all bad. Okay, this is not like a bad thing that has to happen. There are obviously people that doesn't have the greatest credit, but some banks take the chance based on the Big Short. Yes, Johnny, there you go. Thank you so much. That's the one. Yes, The Big Short is called. It's a very interesting movie. It's like a comedy type of thing. So I do recommend you guys to take a look at it again if you haven't yet. So yeah, so um, that was one thing. The other thing that happened was, going back to the story, is that many people, since the prices of the houses started going up because people had money to go out and buy houses, people that already had houses started doing refinancing. And I actually remember this person in Florida, the north of Florida, um, that had a house, one of his houses inside a complex, and he was a captain, police captain here, a retired police captain from New York. He was living down there, and he had three. I think the house was like, he bought it for 300. He didn't owe anything in the house, right? And then the prices started going up, the value started going up, of course, because everybody was buying. And the bank told him, listen, we can give you a loan of $200,000. He was like, really? So he took a loan of $200,000. He bought a house in the R, and then the market went down. So the house ended up with the value of like $50,000 less than what it was before he took the loan. So now he had a house that was worth half of the amount of the loan that he had. So, it was a sick situation. I mean, a guy with a pension that he had to use probably all his pension for something that wasn't even worth anymore what he was paying for. Okay. So this is one of the consequences of this kind of greediness in the lending markets. Okay. This is one of the things that consumers have to be concerned about. Okay. Let's see what else we have. Okay. Another concept to remember is the usury law. It's the one that prevents lenders from charging more than the maximum interest rate set by the state law. So this is also, as you can see, or as you have heard during this particular subject, we have the primary lenders. We spoke about bankers, credit unions, and all that stuff. But you also have individuals that can become mortgagees. If Simon goes to Johnny and says, I want to buy your house, Johnny says, okay, I'm going to sell it to you. Simon says, well, but I'm having issues getting a mortgage with a bank. Johnny says, oh, don't worry, I give you the mortgage. So Johnny becomes the mortgagee, not Chase, not Citibank, Johnny. So, but Johnny says, yeah, but you know what? I'm going to charge you 19%. So, that's illegal in the state of New York because that's over the amount that you can charge. So the most you can charge, I believe, is like 18% in the state a year. So she can, if he tries to take her to court for not paying the rate that he's charging her for, then the court will just dismiss the lawsuit because, first of all, the court cannot enforce something that is illegal, right? So this is what usually law stands for, that prevents lenders from charging more than the maximum interest rate set by the state law. All right, so that was the end of mortgage and lending laws. Okay, that was the end of it. We're gonna be finishing this class tonight with a little bit of construction. Why do we talk about construction? It's not that we need to know everything about construction, but we're gonna be selling real estate. So some of this, or most of it, most likely is gonna be already built. It's not like we live in the middle of the ocean or the middle of the desert. So most of these properties are gonna be really already built. Others are gonna be fairly new, brand new. So we need to know at least, the answer to the most obvious questions about construction. Okay. I have this video here which talks about, actually it doesn't talk, but it's a video of a construction in fast pace. I just like to show it so you guys see the first steps of building a brand new property. All right, first of all, this is the demolition part of the house. As you can see, it's oops, hold on 1 second. So the house has been demolished. And I want you to take a quick look about what happens after. We're just gonna look at this for 1 minute or so. So yeah, our clients or the customers that are gonna be looking at the houses that we have for sale, they do understand that we are not engineers, that we are not contractors, but they expect us to have certain knowledge about certain things. So this is why I always suggest people to look at. Okay, let me just pause that right here, so you guys see they already took the whole house down, and in this case there was a house before. So as you can see, there is the foundation right here. They're actually adding an additional foundation because they're extending the house. So as you can see, the foundation, it's built under the house. Okay, so that's as as its name, it's the foundation, is what holds the actual frame, the actual structure, the bond, the skeleton of the house is held in place by a foundation. Is what the house sits on. Okay. So going back to what I was saying before, the if you're showing, let's say you're selling your client's house, you're gonna have an open house, you're gonna have all people going through, coming in. They're gonna be asking you all sorts of questions, all kinds of questions. So of course, there are questions that you will not be able to answer because you have no knowledge of it. And remember that when we were talking about fraud and all that stuff, it's you should not answer a question that you do not have the answer to, because if you say something that is not right and then the person end up buying the house based on what you said, even though you do not know, you didn't know what you were talking about, then you can get in trouble at the end. Okay, that person's end up being fooled, okay, or deceived. So here we see the framing. This is the second part. So you framing the property in this situation, in this case. Now the type of constructions, of course, as you know, it might be different depending on the section of the country that you live. We're talking about New York real estate. Therefore, we have to consider that the property is going to need insulation to be able to uh, deal with the inclemencies of the weather, the hot summers, the humid summers, or also the winter days, the cold winter days. Okay. So you see the framing, how it's taking place right here. Okay, let me just bring this up to speed. Okay, so this is a huge house, first of all, that is being built. Okay, so this is still part of the framing. This is what we call the structures, the main components of the property. So this is what comes first. So let's just stop here and go back to the PowerPoint presentation to go over a few things. So constructions. So the construction process. As I said, most of the houses that or real estate that you're going to be selling is going to be already built, but of course you're going to also be, depending on where you live, dealing with some brand new houses. As the houses get older, they get demolished and then they will, be rebuilt again. So the first process when you're talking about construction, just for general knowledge, is that let's say Johnny wants to build a house and he has the land already and he talks to an architect. The architect listens to what he has, what he needs, what he wants. And he takes all that dream, all that imagination, takes it into paper. Okay. And he designs what we call a blueprint. Okay. Based on what Johnny wants, but also on what's allowed by law to be done on that particular property. Okay. So he says, well, he wants to do this and that, but here in this area, it's only this section is going to be allowed. So he puts that all into a blueprint. They call it blueprints, which is the regular plan, because back, 30 years, 40 years ago, before they had computers and all that, they had to use blue paper to mark it with a piece of like chalk, and that's why it kept the name blueprints. But it's the same thing as construction plans. And so then this architect tells John, listen, this is what I can offer based on what you want. Johnny looks at it, he says, yes, I want it. So then the architect has to talk to an engineer also to look at the main components, the inside of the house, because the architect's going to work on the outside, but then he also have to work on the inside based on what he's offering to Johnny. So let's say he needs to install HVAC units, but the HVAC units are going to be the size of the HVAC unit. HVAC units means, heating and ventilation air conditioner system. So depending on how big the house is, based on that, you're going to choose the units. So he's going to look at the amount of open space and all that stuff. And all that is going to be into the plans. Then he goes to the county, or he goes to the town or the city where the land is located, and he submits all that paperwork to the building department of the area. The building department receives the paperwork and the building application. They look at everything. There is an engineer that looks at, or a plan examiner that looks at all the paperwork, the actual plan, make sure everything is correct. If there is something that he doesn't think it should be there, or that is against the rules or laws of the area, then he's going to tell the architect, no, you have to fix this. So then the architect has to sit down and look at it and fix it and tell Johnny. If Johnny is okay, then go back and resubmit. All right. Once the plan examiner says everything looks good, then they approve the plan. Plans are approved by the building department, and they give them the okay to start construction. Okay. So then the architect gives the plans back to Johnny. Johnny can choose another contractor who will do all the work, or the architect can choose a contractor and suggest it to Johnny. And then they start doing the work. And the first thing they're going to do, based on the kind of work they're going to be doing, if it's a full whole house from scratch, then they're going to start with the foundation. Now, the building department needs to make sure that all this stuff, the things that are going to be done on the plans, on the blueprints, the construction plans, are going to be done based on the specifications of the plan. The only way how they can do that is if they go to visit the site a few times. So they go to visit, depending on the scope of the work they're going to be doing, depending on how much work they're going to be doing, they go and visit. So they have an inspector that goes to the site and he looks at the location when they do the foundation. So depending on the size of the building, then the inspector know how deep the foundation has to come. So the inspector goes there. There always has to be, this is for general knowledge, don't get concerned. I'm just letting you know. So there always has to be a permit, a copy of the permits given by the building department on the site, and a copy of the plans. So the building inspector can pick up the plan and look at, on a specific moment when he shows up, look at the specifications of what the people is doing and make sure it's correct. Okay. So make sure that if they build in a 4-family building, a 4 units building, that the foundation is 25 feet deep, not 20 feet deep. Okay. So this is the kind of stuff that they do. They go through the length of the construction. They go and visit the site, sometimes by surprise, like they do in New York City all the time. So then the house is done, the building is done, and they go and do a final inspection. Once the final inspection is done, the building department gives them what they call a CO, or certificate of occupancy. A certificate of occupancy that allows them to actually use the building for whatever they want to use it. Okay, so one of the things that usually let's say if you sell in a building, a commercial building, that one more time, I know I mentioned it at the beginning of the class. Remember that you don't need there is no such a thing as a commercial real estate license. So once you get your license now, you can sell any kind of building. You can sell the Yankee Stadium. You can sell the small tiny house in the middle of nowhere with the same license that you're going to get, because there is no such a thing as a commercial real estate license. You have commercial real estate agents because that's what they do. They don't do residential, but that doesn't mean that you cannot sell what they are selling. Okay. So I'm bringing this up because let's say one of you guys have to sell a commercial building. Okay. So the buyer, potential buyer, may come to you and ask you, okay, so you have a copy of the CO, for example. So you have to remember a CO is what they call a certificate of occupancy. What he wants to know is what does the building department says the building is good for. Okay, he wants to make sure that if he wants to open a medical office there, he won't have any issues because the building is warehouse. Okay, or like I have people calling all the time about opening either a church or a party place. You know, party place to do birthdays and that kind of stuff. So I tell people, listen, first of all, this kind of building, because they call, let's say this is a beauty parlor that is empty. There used to be a beauty salon before, and they call, oh, yeah, I wanna, how much is the rent there? I wanna use it for this. So I said, well, just so you know, New York State code says that you need to have a sprinkler system in the building in order to open a church or a, any kind of business where you're going to have more than a certain amount of people inside. So most people do not know this. And also, installing a sprinkle system in a building is a really expensive item that I'm sure the owner is not going to do it for you. So it's like a no-no right off the bat. So many people do not go um, to the length of telling or asking the potential renter in this case, or even a buyer, ask them like, so what are you going to use the building for? Then you go and you waste your time. So the CO, that's what it stands for, certificate of occupancy, and allows a person to know what the building legally being able to use for. Okay, so that's about the blueprints. Let me go then going back to the house. So when we talk about house, we're talking about, for example, the structure of a house. Let's concentrate on a one family dwelling or a property, a house. So when we talk about the structure of the house, so the first thing is the foundation. We're talking about the outside, the skeleton of the house. We're not talking about the blood. We're not talking about the nerves, the muscles, none of that stuff. We're talking about the actual skeleton. And the bottom, let's say the feet of the house, is the foundation. That's where the house stands for. And so you guys remember that I've been talking about foundation from the very beginning too. I've been saying, because we see it a lot. We see a lot of issues with foundations in New York specifically. Uh, if you live close by the water, people is concerned that if there is there's a flood at some point, what is going to go on the basement, or even with the age of the houses in New York, also the foundation may get weak with the time and start and allow water to come through the walls. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why you need to know where the foundation is. Okay, you don't need to know what the foundation was built because you're not an architect, an engineer, but you need to know that if someone comes into the property and asks you, uh, so which way is it to the basement? Oh yeah, this way. Oh wow, this foundation looks pretty good. You say, oh yeah, it is. That's all you can say. But do not um, like. At least you need to know so that when someone asks, you don't look like in La La Land. Because you're gonna be a professional agent. The framing of the property. Okay, the framing, it's also the skeleton of the house. Let's say it's the bones of the property of the house. And you have different type of framing. We have what we call the balloon framing, uh, which is one of the most common one used in the area of New York. And as you can see, it's all made out of wood. Okay, so it's let's say those are the bones of the body of a house. So we have the feet, the foundation, and we have the framing, which is or are the bones. Okay, it's what holds the exterior of the house, what holds the skin of the house, because the skin, let's say, is the siding. So here we go again with the questions. A person can come and tell you, oh yeah, but you see the framing looks a little bit weak. If it's an old house, they can say, yeah, the framing looks a little bit weak. I see like the siding on the outside is a little bit like dent. So listen, once again, you are not an engineer. The best thing you can do is say, well, if you want, I can suggest to an inspector to go and give you give an inspection to you. But you cannot say, oh, well, no, that's fine, that's okay, because you do not know. You are not an engineer. Okay, you're not a house inspector. So the best thing for you to do is to say, okay, yeah, don't worry. I mean, we can have an inspector checking it out. That's all you can do. Okay. And then we have the roof, which is, let's say, the head. Okay, so it's the top of the house is the roof. So these are all the structures of the house. Then we also have the the siding, which is like the skin. Okay, now these are the structures. So when we talk about key components are then the stuff that goes inside. So it's like the blood, that flows all over, all around the tissue, the muscles of your body, in this case of the house. So let's say we live in the East Coast, we live in the cold weather or very humid and hot weather in the summertime. So the house needs insulation here. Okay. So maybe they're going to ask you what type of insulation the house has, but sadly you do not know because the insulation goes behind the walls. So once again, you can say, well, I'm not sure, but if you want, we can have an inspector you can ask the inspector during the inspection. You can be very nice and just say that. Okay. So the insulation is what protects the property, the inside of the property. Once again, in the wintertime from the cold weather, in the summertime from the hot weather. Also helps the the house to stay warm in the winter time and save energy depending on the type of insulation, on the age of the insulation, the installation of the insulation. Okay. You may have two types of insulation. I mean, for those of you who have seen installation at some point in your life, maybe outside of a construction, outside of a house, some of them comes like in big rolls. Some of them are like pink. Some others are, now we also have a spraying installation, which is pretty convenient for places that are already enclosed. But most of the installations that you see used nowadays is called blanket installation. So it's the one that comes in those big rolls, and then they open it up and they put it against the wall, and then they seal the wall. So they put sheetrock on top of the wall. Okay. Type of insulation can be depending on where you are. So the colder the weather, the more insulation you need, and the insulation is based on what we call R factor. R factor. And the R factor, the more insulation, the more protection you need, the bigger the R factor. That's how it works. The type of electricity too. People is gonna be asking, when they see a huge house, they're gonna be like, wow, when you see a house with two huge HVAC units, with a pool, with 4 garages, they're gonna be wondering, wow, what kind of electricity you have here? And that's for you to like, okay, I don't really know. So these are the kind of questions that you can actually ask on your first visit to the your client. Let's say in the event that you're the one selling the property, you can go. I always suggest that people goes with a friend of them that may be a contractor, a construction person that can help them out, with all these questions if you are not too knowledgeable about construction. And then you can make a little list, a few questions with answers, and you keep them with you. When a customer comes from the outside to look at the house, then they ask you certain questions, and you're gonna have more the basic questions, and you also gonna have that perfect answer. You can always tell them, listen, you're gonna do an inspection. We can ask the inspector when he does the inspection. They're gonna be asking about the type of HVAC units. I mentioned HVAC units a few minutes ago also. Heating and ventilation air conditioner. Okay, so nowadays the newer houses, they have HVAC units, okay, which allows them to have a single unit to provide heat and ventilation, of course, in different times of the year, through the same ducts, okay, which is very convenient for electricity, uh, um, electricity consumption, okay, or gas consumption. Some of them are gas um, users. So the water source, if you live in a certain area of the state where you don't have a basic water system from the city, from the town, then the people is gonna ask you, where do you get your water from? Where's the water coming from? Okay, it's coming from a well under the on the ground, or it's coming from the main tank a few kilometers away. Okay, so let's leave it here for now. Anyone has a question? Does anyone has a question? Sorry. Does anyone has a question? Okay. Nope. All right. So let's bring it to the quiz of tonight. Dun, 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 dun. All right. So we're going to be doing, let's do mortgage basics 2. Okay, let me bring you back. So, okay, so this is a question. It's gonna have questions from the last 2 days. So let me open the chat, guys. Remember to take a look at that movie when you have a chance, The Big Short. All right, so if a buyer defaults on a trust deed with a power of sell clause, the lender can initiate. This question was yesterday in the chat at the end of the class in a different way. So I hope you guys remember. So if a buyer defaults on a trust deed with a power of sell clause, the lender can initiate a, which one of the 4? All right, I have a B from Carell. I have a B. Do I get an A? Do I get a C? Do I get a D? I have a B from Simone. Do I have to B? Be going on once, be going on twice. Going, non-judicial foreclosure action. Johnny, well done. With a trust deed upon buyer's default, the creditor may be in a non-judicial foreclosure action authorized by a power of sell clause that allows the trustee to sell the property without court supervision. Very well done, guys. Remember, that's the difference between a trust deed and a mortgage. Okay, a trust deed, you have a trustor, a trustee, and the beneficiary. Okay, there is no, as long as the trustee has that clause, the power of sell clause, then the lender can initiate a non-judicial foreclosure. Okay, that allows them to sell the property without court supervision. Let's go to the next one. The purpose of using a PT to structure payments in a budget mortgage is to PT, remember, PITOI. What's the purpose of it? Do I get an A? Do I get a bit C? I have a C from Carol Vanesland. I have two C's. I have a C from Johnny. I have a C, two C's tonight. Anyone else? I have a C. Do I have an A? Do I have a B? Do I have a D? Anyone else? Okay, I have three C's. I'm going with the C. Ensure that enough funds are collected to cover tax and insurance premiums. Correct. The answer is C. Very well done, guys. All right, let's go with the next one of the night. We have, in the event of a default, which debt is normally paid first from the proceeds of the foreclosure sale? Which one is paid first? In the event of a default, which debt is normally paid first? All right, so what do I have here? I have two Ds. Oh, I have three Ds. I have one D from Simon. So real estate taxes and associated costs of lease sell. Very well done, guys. We're doing great tonight. The main difference between a 30 years conventional loan and a bi-weekly mortgage is, listen very well, read very well. The main difference between a 30 years conventional loan and a bi-weekly mortgage is A, the interest rate fluctuate according. Okay, I have two C's. I have a C from Simone. I have a C from Carol. What's the main difference between a 30 years conventional loan and a bi-weekly mortgage? I have three C's. I'm going with the C, guys. Let's see what you guys have to offer. C, the correct answer is C. Very well done, guys. Very well done. We're going with the next one. Which type of alternative financing is referred to as rapidly amortizing mortgage? Yeah, I don't think we saw this one. We did not see this one, but the answer, it's here. Of course it's here, but you know what I mean. It's I'm sure you can find the answer on this one. I have an A from Simone. Do I get a B? Do I get a C? Do I get a D? Do I get a B? Do I get a C? Do I get a D? I have a B from Carol. I have an A and a B. Who else? Sorry. Anyone else? Okay, I have two B's and one A, so I'm going with the majority, which is in this case the B. The answer is B, grow equity mortgage. So this alternative financing pays off the loan faster and saves interest because the fixed interest rate allows 100% of the annual payment increases to reduce the principal balance. All right, so grow equity mortgage. We didn't talk about this one. I mean, I honestly never saw this one before. So I don't think it's something that you guys have to lose sleep over. All right, so let's go with one about today. Which legislation prohibits discriminatory practices such as blockbusting, steering, or redlining? We are going to be talking about these three ones, I believe, tomorrow. So why is this one here anyway? All right, let's just forget about this one for now. Let's see what else we have here. What's required to, okay, yeah. What requires lenders to use an annual percentage rate, APR, so that borrowers have the information they need to make informed comparisons? So we were talking about what, well, we spoke about all these four laws today. So which one is the one that requires the lenders to use an annual percentage rate, the APR, so that the borrowers have the information they need to make informed comparisons? Okay, I have a C, Regulation Z. I have a C from Carell. This is the last one of the night, people. I have a Z from Carell. Anyone else? Do I get a A? Do I get a B? Do I get a D? Anyone else? Anyone else? Remember, we said that some of these are for equal credit to everyone. The other one was for making sure everyone had all the information they needed. Okay. One of those we haven't spoken about yet. And okay, so I have two C's. I have two C's. Anyone else? I have two C's. I'm going with the two C's, and Simon says A. So I have two C's. I'm going with the majority, which is the C. Correct. The answer is C. On the regulation C, lenders must use an annual percentage rate APR so that the borrowers have the information they need to make informed comparisons among different lenders. Remember that the APR. So remember when I was talking about regulation Z that I mentioned, one of the things that the lenders have to make sure they do is that they don't do deceiving practices like advertisement. I don't know, every time you see a bank or a company talking about selling cars, for example, they say, oh, 3% and 3.25% APR. They need to let people know that even though they're going to be paying 3%, in reality, they're going to be paying 3.25%, because the 0.25% is the extra charges that they're going to have to pay to the company. And this is exactly what Regulation Z does. They make sure that these institutions do not deceive them by telling them, oh no, it's only going to be 3%. When they go to pay, they realize they're actually paying more. And that comes up to 3.25%. Okay. So, well, anyway, guys, thank you once again. Now we have only 7 days to go. See you tomorrow. Have a great night.